Hi, this is Ask GMBN Tech, the weekly Q&A session. You ask the questions, we give you the answers. You got any questions for us? Let us know in the comments. Use that hashtag as you can see on the screen there, Ask GMBN Tech. If it's a good enough question, we'll put it on this show. Right, let's get cracking, shall we? First question is from PZQUU. What's the best examples of hack or bodge tools you've used when you did not have the appropriate tool available? Oh man, I'm the king of the bodge. I've done loads of this stuff over the years. Where do you start? Well, the classic, I guess, is a hammer. I've probably fitted 30, maybe 40 headsets over the years with a hammer. And I'm not talking about dropping bearings. I'm talking about proper cups you have to press into the frame. Used to do this, a block of wood and a mallet, quite often at my desk when I was working at the magazines, because it was quicker and easier just to chuck it together. You should not do this though, because the fact if you don't get your headset in straight, you can wreck it. I just got very good at doing it over many years. Screwdriver, of course, a flat-bladed screwdriver for removing crown races. Now, you shouldn't do this with the screwdriver you're ever planning on using it ever again. I effectively was using it like a punch, but I have got a dedicated blunt rubbish screwdriver I use just for that. What else? Old handlebars and cranks and things like that. Anything hollow that you can use for leverage, normally on an Allen key or something like that that's stuck like a 8mm crank bolt, something like that. What else have I used? Think about this. Angle grinder. Yeah, angle grinder for cutting down steerer tubes and handlebars. In particular, when I've not had like a carbon safe blade, but I have had angle grinder blades that are perfect for that and get a better cut actually, because the blade cuts so fast. Obviously, using that you need eyewear and stuff as well. Pipe cutters. I love using pipe cutters. They are fantastic for cutting down steerer tubes and bars, but you can't use too much pressure because you can sort of like crimp the ends or flare them out, and you can't use a blunt sort of cutting disc on them as well. So if you've got a good one and you know how to use it, they can be really good, but more often than not, you can mess things up. Impact driver. This one is one of my absolute favourites. In fact, you can see on this one now, I've got a Torx bit on there. Now, I would never use this for installing a disc rotor, but in the workshop when we're swapping wheels and we're doing stuff for videos, I use this quite often to remove disc rotors because that's not going to harm them. Kind of cool. You feel like a bit of a Formula 1 mechanic for 20 seconds as well. So I'm sure someone else has done that. And a vise, I guess, as well. The vise is used for all manner of sins. Can't give you a good example other than this photo on screen of a bent disc rotor. Let's have that one. So I had an old knackered disc rotor and I made, you might be able to just see it, if not I'll show you a cut in detail, bookend basically for my books. So nicely done. Right, next question is from Joe Carter 88. What is the best grease or lube to use on freehub pawls? I took mine apart to clean as the hub went for a swim. Oh dear, not sure what to lube it with, so they don't stick but are lubricated. Okay, so you want the lightest grease possible. Now, some manufacturers in the past have recommended using oils. I've still got like a bottle of this Mavic oil, which I swear by is like the best stuff to use, but I don't even know if they still make it. Now, DT make a special grease, and it's literally called special grease for freehub bodies. In fact, I've got some here. I will show you. I'll just throw it on the floor instead, shall I? It's called special grease. You probably can't see that in focus. I'll do a cut-in shot so you can see it. It's pink stuff. It's quite thin. It's not really good for keeping water at bay, but it's a lubricating grease and it stays in place. The other thing you could use, of course, is suspension grease. Now, it's very thin, very slippery and designed to stay in place. And because you're not really making a barrier here for water to get in, it's actually pretty good stuff for using on those. But essentially, the thinnest possible because you don't want to interfere with the movement of them or basically add any friction to the system. Next question is from Tim Sadler. Hey Tim, a regular on the show now. This is pretty cool. You've got a wicked bike cave, by the way. And seems to be out riding quite a lot as well, which I'm quite envious of at the moment. Right, body armour and clothing tech. What do the pros wear in downhill, enduro and cross country? What are the UCI requirements? What are the standards? When does too much armour mean less control, mobility? And what do the GMBN team wear? Well, there's loads in there. Okay, in honesty, caught me off guard there. I don't know about the UCI requirements, but in EWS, you need to have a full face helmet for the stages basically. So they do allow two-piece helmets with removable jaw guards. So you can do like the liaison stages or the transitions basically with effectively an open face helmet, but you must put the jaw guard on for the actual descending stages. Now, a lot of riders are starting to use just full face helmets that are more ventilated essentially. In the early days, I think in some real early enduro races, you could have seen people taking their helmets off for transitions, which of course is a no-no because, well, it's just not a good idea, is it? So that's the deal with helmets. But as far as I know, they also go on local regulations. So let's just say you were doing a round in Portugal and the local rules for racing there was you have to have a full face helmet. They wouldn't allow you to, for example, have a two-piece helmet. You'd have to have a full face. So, and perhaps the local regulations might stipulate that you've got to have a back protector. Now, legal back protectors to use in racing can come in the form of mainly hydration packs. Camelback and Evoc both do certified bags with protection built in, and it's actually a really sensible way of doing it because you're carrying all the stuff that you need to carry anyway. A lot of those races, I think you've got to carry a whistle, a certain amount of first aid gear, a waterproof jacket. Like, they're very specific on the regulations. And actually, EWS regulations, weirdly, on a geeky level, they're actually kind of interesting. They're worth having a look at. It tells you a bit about stuff about the bikes as well, what you're allowed to start a race with and what you must finish a race with. So that's worth a read. That's on the EWS website. Okay, so with us, right, well actually we've signed with Dainese as far as I know, which is pretty cool because Dainese, they've been making armour in mountain biking for years. You know, I used to have one of the all-in-one upper body jackets that back then you wore that on its own, which I just think is hilarious. So maybe we could do a retro versus modern with body armour because there's been some atrocious stuff over the years. And what Dainese are making from their motorbike world is phenomenal now. So myself, I prefer the absolute minimum. I don't really like wearing much in the way of body armour or even full face helmets if I can avoid it. Not even gloves either. So I'll wear gloves if it's a rocky or a sort of a gnarly place, or if it's cold. Otherwise, I prefer actually to not wear gloves. And I know that many people frown upon this, but I know there's a lot of other riders like Johan Brady that like to not wear gloves. After a while, you can get really tough hands from doing it, and mine are pretty tough from building work and stuff in the house. So I don't mind this, but I'm well aware that, you know, you should be promoting gloves as a safety aspect, and they're a good idea if you fall off. With pads, I will wear knee pads, but I prefer something a bit on the thinner side, which I appreciate it's not going to be the best in a massive crash, but they protect you from most sort of falls. Blake, for example, the complete flip side, he'll run it like almost a hard cap if he can. Last season, running POC pads, he was running like the biggest pad. And well, you know what Blake does, you know, here and there if he's ejecting from a flip or something. I mean, he's got cat skills, so it's not to compare him with me or anyone else, to be fair. He's on his own there, but he knows how to crash, which I know sounds a weird thing to say, but he's really good at crashing. That's not to suggest he's not a good rider. You know, he's an amazing rider. All the other riders are kind of chop and change between what they need to. That includes helmets, elbow guards, body suits. And in fact, actually, Blake wore a body jacket at the Mega Avalanche. He wore one of the new school ones, which doesn't have massive cups armour on it. It's actually like almost like a rash vest. Had something like a D30 chest protector built into it, and the same with the back protector, like a spine protector, kidney belt, that sort of stuff. I think it depends on what you're doing and where you're going, but armour is definitely a good idea. A little lesson for you though with armour. I said that I don't like to wear it. I got myself some really good elbow pads for a trip to Passports to Soleil a few years back with a load of friends. One of our mates was a bit of a newbie as far as alpine riding goes, and he was really nervous and he'd actually forgotten his pads. So I gave him my elbow pads and I was like, look, you know, whatever happens, take it easy, try and relax, you'll enjoy yourself. And then that morning out riding, I had probably one of the fastest and worst crashes I've ever had. I snapped both the brake levers off my bike and I ended up with 17 stitches in this arm here. Like, my whole elbow was all peeled open. It was a right old mess. Yeah, and I obviously regret massively not wearing pads because that took me out for a day. I was in the clinic in Morzine with some French nurse pretty much kneeling on my arm using iodine and a Brillo pad to get all the rocks and crap out of my arm. And we did the Passports the next day, and I could barely hold onto the bars because my arm was so swollen, but we still did it. In fact, here's a few images on screen of that bloody arm and us wearing stupid Hawaiian shirts because it was a good idea. If you look closer, you can see I'm wearing a SRAM sock over my arm to try and keep all the padding and that from getting basically dirty and getting infected. But yeah, wear pads, it's a good idea. Sorry, super long answer there, my bad. Sorry to Josh who's editing this as well. The Meteor Kid. Having trouble with my rotor making a ding sound, like a bullet ejection from a rifle. Wow, okay. When I drop my fork. New fork, rotors and brakes. I believe the headset's aligned as good as it can be. Any help? Okay, so something is contacting or something is rattling. So there's a number of things. Check your axle, depending on what system you have. It could be QR15, it could be, you didn't say what brand, it could be Maxell, it could be bolt through. If it's bolt through, check if it's got a pinch bolt like on the new Fox Force, because it might be that's actually moving. If there's any movement at all, of course the rotor can just ding on those pads. Now, depending on what model brakes you've got, again, you've not said, some brake pads can be guilty of moving very slightly in the caliper, and that can make that ding noise on the rotor. And again, if the rotor's slightly loose, that can also make it. There's a number of things it could be here. Yeah, sorry, you're just gonna have to check that stuff. The Appleby. Doddy, as a roadie making my move back to my first and long neglected love, mountain biking, welcome back for starters, and welcome back from the dark side to the light side. What advice have you got for setting up my new bike? Canyon Stoic on its way. Oh, dude, Neil's got one of those. That is actually really nice. I kind of regret ordering the Grand Canyon now that the Stoic's out. Maybe I could just swap. Okay, so are there any things I should do that mountain bikers do that roadies basically do? So undoing your road background. Okay, so focus your setup on control, not on efficiency. Right, no matter what you do to set up a mountain bike, it's never going to be or feel as efficient as a road bike, so don't bother trying. Okay, so focus on the control and you'll have more fun off-road. You'll have way more control. Right, so for example, you could move your cleats slightly rearward. If you're used to having your cleats really far forwards on your road bike, having them rearwards on a mountain bike will give you loads more stability and control. Yes, it might feel a bit odd, so you might not want to do it straight away, or you can move them back. Yeah, okay, so it's not ideal for long, seriously long rides, but we're talking about all-out control here, so it does make a difference. You won't engage your calf muscle as much, so on those descents you won't be straining it as much, so actually you get a bit more power back from your legs, so that's definitely worth looking at. Q factor as well. You might have probably quite a narrow Q factor on your road bike. Your Q factor on a mountain bike generally is a bit wider. You can ink it out a little bit, but with wider axles or moving your cleats inboard, that gives you a really good, good stance on the bike there. What else? Bar width. Okay, so bar width is personal. You do want to probably go a tiny bit wider than you might be used to. Road bike width bars wouldn't be too good off-road, but a lot of people that ride road and mountain bikes tend to have very long, very low stems on their bikes and very narrow handlebars, which isn't ideal. Now that is quite a modern bike you've got, so you're gonna have to get used to a shorter stem on that in a more upright position. Don't knock it to start with. The best option really would be to ride it a few times, more or less roll the bars forwards to how you like them, get used to it. Have your controls slightly higher up than you might think. You might think because you're used to reaching down on the drops that you won't have your brake levers down in that position. Put them up, it strains your wrist otherwise at an unnatural angle. And if you struggle with rolling speed of tyres, perhaps you want to consider something faster on the rear, but stick to a knobbly tyre on the front so you've got a bit more confidence off-road. And I guess the other thing as well is tyre pressure. Play with tyre pressure. I know a lot of people that ride both, and when they ride, as in road and mountain bike, when they got on a mountain bike, they tend to run firmer pressure because they feel like the bike rolls quicker. That's not necessarily true. Softer pressure allows the tyre to deform and roll over obstacles rather than ping off them, so you actually go faster, plus you get more grip, stability, control and confidence. And that's it. Go and enjoy it. Welcome back. I love road bikes, by the way, but yeah, welcome back to the good stuff. Okay, I love contradicting myself too. Jack 8, I'm having a problem with a wandering bite point with my Shimano mineral oil. Is Marks & Spencer's lemonade any good? Do you know what? It's surprisingly good. Yeah, tried it for a video. I would never ever go and ride a bike properly with it, and I wouldn't recommend it. Bite point control, right? Okay, so there's too many things at hand here. If you know how to bleed a set of brakes, you can still mess it up. I've bled God knows how many sets of brakes over the years, and you can still get sets here and there where you get trapped air, could be in the caliper, the banjo, a bit of a weird angle, like an acute angle in the hosing. So you just basically got to tap it out, spend a bit of time. If it's a rear brake hose, it's more common to get problems with these ones, get air in them. Even when they feel solid, put it up on your back end for a while. If the bike's up on the back end and it pulls to the bars, you know it, you've got air in there. So a cool cheat you could do if you hang your bikes vertically like I do in here is hang your bike up overnight, leave the caliper end closed and make your brake lever horizontal, open the top of it, put the little funnel in if it's Shimano, or put a syringe in if it's not, and basically see if you can let some of that air migrate overnight. Obviously make sure you've got like shop towel and stuff around, other stuff there. Check all the hardware's tight as well. If you shortened the hoses on your bike, did you actually cut them properly at 90 degrees? If they're a tiny bit off and you just put the barb in, you can get air leaking in there. Like, it actually happens more often than people think. It's basically a check, double check, triple check. Sorry. Rory Price, bit of a daft one here. Can you get MO94 on your disc rotors and pads? No, that's a lubricant. Don't get them anywhere near your brakes. The only thing you should get near your brakes are water, bike cleaner that says it's safe for use on brakes, or dedicated disc brake cleaner. Other than that, treat it as a contaminant, okay? If it bothers you when you're washing your bike and things like that, or you feel like you can get stuff in the way, have some like shop towel, wedge it in the back wheel, so it's effectively making a blocker against your rotor when you spray stuff around there, if you're using a spray. And I think Muck-Off actually make a dedicated rotor like protection kit, which might be a good idea. I know loads of people are a bit ham-fisted with sprays and stuff, so if that sounds like you, then it's a good buy to protect the stuff. But keep any lubricants, waxes, polishes, anything like that well away from your brakes. Like, oh, there we go, end of the show this week. Hopefully I answered some good questions for you. Let us know in the comments and get your comments in for next week. See you later.